On April 18, 2025, the United States launched airstrikes on the Ras Isa oil port in Yemen. This port, a crucial hub for fuel imports, was under the control of the Houthi rebels. The attack resulted in a significant loss of life and marked a drastic escalation in the ongoing conflict between the U.S. and the Houthis. According to reports from the Houthi-run Health Ministry, at least 74 people were killed in the attack, and 171 were wounded. These casualties included port workers and paramedics who were present at the scene. The reported death toll represents a grim milestone, marking the deadliest single incident since the U.S. intensified its campaign against the Houthis in March 2025. The port, located in Hodeidah, is the primary entry point for fuel and other essential goods into Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. The attack on this critical infrastructure has raised concerns about its impact on the already dire humanitarian situation in the region. The port's destruction could further exacerbate fuel shortages and hinder the delivery of aid to those most in need. The U.S. Central Command, or CENTCOM, justified the airstrikes, stating that they were intended to disrupt the Houthi rebels' revenue streams. The U.S. government accused the Houthis of using the port for illicit profits, claiming that the attack was aimed at degrading their economic power. CENTCOM emphasized that the strikes were not intended to harm civilians, and that their primary target was the Houthis' financial infrastructure. However, the Houthi rebels vehemently denied these accusations, condemning the U.S. airstrikes as an act of aggression. They vowed to retaliate against the United States and its allies, including Israel, until their demands were met. Specifically, the Houthis demanded an end to the Israeli offensive in Gaza and the lifting of the siege. They framed the U.S. actions as a provocation that would only escalate the conflict and lead to further violence. The Houthi response to the airstrikes extended beyond rhetoric. Just hours after the attack on the Ras Isa oil port, the Houthis launched a missile toward Israel. The missile was intercepted, but the attack underscored the Houthis' determination to retaliate against what they perceived as U.S. aggression. They also claimed to have shot down a U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone over Sana'a on April 18, the sixth such downing since March 3, 2025. The recent escalation in tensions between the U.S. and the Houthi rebels can be traced back to a series of attacks on merchant vessels in the Red Sea. Since November 2023, the Houthis have been accused of attacking over 100 ships in the region, significantly disrupting international trade and raising concerns about maritime security. These attacks, which have resulted in the sinking of 2 vessels and the deaths of 4 sailors, have been a key driver of the U.S. intervention in the region. The U.S. government has condemned the Houthi attacks on shipping, characterizing them as a threat to international peace and security. They argue that the attacks are part of a broader pattern of destabilizing behavior by the Houthis, who are backed by Iran. The U.S. has accused Iran of providing the Houthis with weapons and financial support, fueling the conflict in Yemen. The U.S. has increased its military presence in the region in response to the Houthi attacks, deploying warships and aircraft to deter further aggression. The Biden administration has also imposed sanctions on Houthi leaders and entities, seeking to pressure them into halting the attacks and engaging in peace talks. However, these efforts have so far failed to curb the violence, and the situation in Yemen continues to deteriorate. The U.S. airstrikes on the Ras Isa oil port have been met with widespread condemnation from international organizations and human rights groups. Critics have denounced the attack as a violation of international law and have expressed concerns about the impact on the already dire humanitarian situation in Yemen. The UN has called for an independent investigation into the airstrikes and has urged all parties to the conflict to exercise restraint. The attack on the oil port has also raised concerns about the environmental impact. The strikes caused massive fires, destroying fuel trucks and resulting in oil leaking into the Red Sea. Satellite imagery has confirmed the presence of oil spills, raising fears of long-term damage to the marine ecosystem and the livelihoods of communities that depend on it. The U.S. airstrikes on the Ras Isa oil port mark a significant escalation in the conflict in Yemen and have further complicated efforts to find a peaceful resolution. The attack has heightened tensions between the U.S. and the Houthis, making it even more challenging to bring them to the negotiating table. The international community is now faced with the daunting task of preventing further escalation and addressing the humanitarian crisis in Yemen.